let's start this video from the beginning. Several months ago, SCAG contacted me about coming out and checking out their facility. They wanted to give me an opportunity to see how the mowers are made, to kind of see the behind the scenes of SCAG power equipment. As a YouTuber, you know, my first reaction was, oh man, this is going to make an epic video. But as I read further into this email, I realized that SCAG's parent company not only builds mowers, but they also do government contracts. Because of this fact, they are very strict about filming inside their facility. I do want to say that I understand why they don't want us to film in their facility. These government contracts, I'm sure, are worth millions, possibly billions. That's a lot of money to lose over, you know, a picture or a video getting out that you don't want out there. Needless to say, I was a little bummed about the fact, as a YouTuber, I want to film, I want to share this with my audience, and they weren't going to allow me to do it. I definitely always want to take you guys along with me as I go to things like this, as I go through these experiences. I want to share them. To me, that's the joy of YouTube, is getting to share these experiences with all of you guys. But either way, that morning I did decide that I was going to start filming some stuff just in case I was able to talk them into letting me film. So here's a little clip I took that morning right before I was leaving. The day is finally here and we're going to be traveling over to SCAG's facility. We're going to be staying the night up there, touring the facility tomorrow most of the day, and then flying back. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll be back in Arkansas around, I think, 11 o'clock or so tomorrow evening. Just now leaving the house now, got like a 12:30 flight. Pretty relaxed, not anything in a rush or anything like that. So I will take you guys along with me as much as I can. So pretty much right after I filmed that, things went from being really relaxed to being a little bit of a scramble. My flight from Arkansas to Chicago was good to go. But once I got into Chicago, my flight from there to Milwaukee had actually been canceled. I don't know if it was due to the snow or other factors, but all I knew is it had got canceled. They ended up sending a car service down to pick me up in Chicago and then drive me back to Milwaukee. SCAG's a little bit outside of Milwaukee in a little small town, and they just took me straight to the hotel. About the time I got into the car and we got out on the road headed towards Milwaukee, it did start to snow. For a guy like me from the south, we don't see much snow, so to me it looked like a blizzard. This guy never really slowed down, drove through it like it was nothing. I'm glad he was driving and not me. But in the end, we made it safe and sound up to the hotel, and I was able to meet a couple of the guys from SCAG. We ended up meeting in the lobby, and then went from the lobby, we went to a restaurant. They took me out to eat. I got to sit down with like 5 guys from SCAG, various departments from engineering, sales, marketing, and social media. It was really cool to get a chance to sit down with these guys at dinner like this, because you could tell from the questions that they were asking me that they were really interested of what the end user, the guys like me, think of their products, what we like, what we don't like, and they were open whenever I talked about things that I didn't like. From there, I just went back to the hotel, got some sleep. We had an early morning the next morning to get the tour started. The next morning, SCAG sent a couple of guys over to the hotel to pick us up. I say us because I was actually there with another guy named David. He's an owner-operator out of Louisville, Kentucky. If you want to check him out, he's BladeWorks on Instagram. When we got to the facility, they did take us into a conference room, showed us a slideshow. They wanted to show us how the company is structured, what kind of products they make, and just some general information. I have to say, it was really neat to find out the story kind of behind SCAG, and that they have a parent company, which is Metalcraft of Mayville. They are who actually builds the mower, and then SCAG is actually an entity of that kind of does all the sales, marketing, and research and development. There's only about 30 guys or so that work on the SCAG side of Metalcraft, which I think is awesome because it cuts out all that corporate world stuff where if they want to make a change, they've got to go to a board and all this kind of mess. They talk to each other, and if they want to make a change, it's pretty easy to kind of make that change. So they can definitely listen to guys like us, the end users, and tweak things as they go. So first, let's talk about the research and development. That was actually the first place they took us on the tour, was into their research and development lab. Now as we walked in, it was pretty obvious that things had been cleaned up, put away, and it's understandable. They can't show us what they're working on, that's all hidden. But they did kind of show us how they test some of their products by setting up some of their tests. Now this first test that you're seeing, this is a stress test on a frame of a mower. What they're doing is they have this piston that is pushing in and out on the frame to kind of twist and torque the frame. If I remember correctly, this thing is putting 500 pounds of pressure out and 500 pounds of pressure in. They're actually going to push this frame all the way to the point of failure. So they will let this thing cycle hundreds, thousands, millions, I'm not really sure, however many times it takes to push that frame to failure, so that way they know the limits of their frame. They can also see weak points, find out what needs to be changed. They also do testing on belts, on pulleys, on their spindles. Every part of their mowers are tested. So this next clip, this is a test that they're doing on a mower deck. This is a dead drop test. They're just taking the mower from the top height and doing a dead drop down to the bottom. And this will show them the durability of the deck itself and all the hinge points of being able to lift that deck up and down. The way I look at it is this is kind of simulating us driving down the road with this mower on our trailer and it bouncing as we go over bumps, speed bumps, or just potholes in the road. So as I said before, there were parts of this tour that I was not able to film. So the next step was we actually went out on the manufacturing floor. We got to see the raw material as it comes in. Every mower is just flat steel, square tubing. It's just raw steel as it comes in the door. They do have these giant presses and stamps. These things are probably like 2 stories high. They go 2 stories into the ground, and it's these hydraulic or ram stamps. So they have these dies in there, and it will actually stamp out a part out of the steel that then will go on through the process of being bent and welded. So along with these stamp machines, they also utilize laser cutting machines. So what you're seeing here is this machine is cutting out the pulley covers that you see on the deck. That's the black piece that goes over the pulleys that you're able to remove so that you can change out your blades. What's really cool about this machine is it pretty much runs on its own once it's started. So that sheet of steel will actually take itself out of the machine, remove all the cut parts, and then it puts a new piece of steel in and slides that piece of steel into the machine and starts the process over of cutting more of this exact same parts. So as those parts come out of the machine as just a flat cut piece, they'll then go elsewhere in the facility where then they'll be bent, welded, and created into the cover that you see on your pulleys. So the next machine I want to show you guys, this thing is automatically taking that flat cut steel. These are actually mower decks. They're either stamped out or cut out with the laser, kind of the same way you saw that other part. And it's just a flat piece of steel. Now this machine is going to pick up this steel, it's going to put it into these press brakes, and it is going to make all the bends that need to be in the steel. From here it'll go to another location where it is then put into a jig. A human actually does a bunch of spot welds where the robot can't get, and then the piece is put into the machine where a robotic welder will do all the welding on the deck. So after all the parts have gone through the process of being cut, being welded, they're pretty much the done product. They're just still bare steel. At this point they get hung on these racks, and the racks are kind of like a build. You can almost think of it like back in the day whenever you built toy models, all the little parts came on those little plastic things and you had to break them all off. Kind of resembles that. After they're hung on these racks, they're actually going to go through the powder coating process. So these racks are then hung on these tracks that are above you. These tracks are electrified because that's how powder coat works. Is it's an electrical charge that attracts the powder to the metal. So it will run through this machine, and the machine will powder coat as much as it can. If you look real close at the other end, you can see there are a couple humans in there. and they are actually hitting all the little spots that the robot can't get to. As the parts come out of this machine, they are then put into a furnace. The furnace is what locks all of that powder coat on. I'm not sure if you can tell from this video, but as they come out of the powder coater, they're actually a real dull finish. And it's not until they get heat treated that they get that shine that you see on your SCAG mowers. So as they come out of the furnace, they take a little bit of time to cool the parts, and then from there they go over to the assembly line. I don't have any footage of the assembly line, but it's kind of just like a car assembly line. The mowers are on these racks. They're constantly moving forward down the assembly line, and there's just a whole row of people. They all have air guns that are above them. They're putting parts on. They put on a specific part, the next person puts on the next part, and so forth and so on as they go down the line. Now, as the mower comes off the line at the very end, it actually goes through a dyno test. This dyno test, they start the engine, they run it up to RPM, they use the hydros. They also set the hydros so that they're even on both sides. That way it will drive in a straight line. So after it comes off the dyno test, at that point the mower is pretty much done. They're gonna put final assembly stuff on it, then they're gonna start packaging it into these metal crates. Once they get it packaged into the metal crate, it goes into a truck, and from there it goes out to the dealers. And that right there pretty much concluded our tour. From there we just spent a little bit of time talking to them. And then we hopped in a car and we headed off to the airport to fly back. I do want to say a big thank you to SCAG, not only for inviting me out there, but I also want to say thank you for putting up with me hounding them about videoing. They were very gracious. They let me video way more than I thought I would be able to. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. It was awesome to go through that process. I am excited that I was able to share as much as I have shared with you guys. I really appreciate you guys sticking around this long. If you have made it to this point, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Also, share this video out there. I think this is some exclusive footage. I haven't seen anything like it on YouTube, so let's share it out there. Let's make sure other people get to experience this and get to see this behind the scenes footage. Also, make sure you leave any of your questions down in the comments. If I can't answer your question, I'll contact SCAG, I'll get them on here, and I'll get them to answer your question.